Hi and welcome to another grumpy video. So the title of this video isn't a statement before I get people telling me how wrong I am. It's really meant as a question, because this is something that I've noticed over the years when I've read books or watched shows that are set in schools or feature teens. That generally speaking, the modern day books, movies and TV series have bullies that are pretty. Now I'm using quotes because I accept that attractiveness is subjective. So what is beautiful to one person may not be to another. But there's no getting away from the fact that in most of these stories, the girls who are portrayed as the bullies are well-groomed, expensively dressed and expertly made up. And they vilify any of their peers who are not so well off or skilled at makeup application, whether they are blessed in the looks department or just capable of hiding the fact that they aren't. This plot device occurred to me a few days ago when I finally finished watching Pretty Little Liars. Before anybody points out that I'm not the target demographic, I'm already well aware of that, but I got sucked into watching this series somehow anyway. A few seasons in, I found out it was based on a book series, which I started and finished well before the show aired its final episode. Anybody who has watched this show will be well aware that the main character was portrayed as well-off, privileged and beautiful. Well, they all were, but I'm referring to the one who was considered the leader of the group. I'm not going to be going into this story in this video because there is so much I could say about it, and I probably will do a separate video just for that. But the concept of the beautiful boss bitch was definitely not exclusive to the Pretty Little Liars series. It's also featured in Gossip Girl, Mean Girls, Vampire Diaries, to name but a few. And what interested me is whether this really reflects real life and what kind of message that sends. Because I don't recall this being a thing when I was at school, admittedly back in the days when we still travelled to school on dinosaur-powered carts. I mean, yeah, there were bullies, obviously, but I don't remember the bullies spending so much time on the hair, clothes and makeup that they didn't really have any time to do any serious bullying. Not that they didn't wear makeup at all, but we are talking more Prisoner Solbach H pretty than Gossip Girl. I'm not going to say that all the bullies were ugly either, because really they were average. They achieved their dubious status by virtue of their strength or lack of fear of getting hurt, or downright psychotic tendencies that instilled fear in lesser mortals, rather than their ability to match their eyeshadow to the designer handbag. Which also made me question whether this is a cultural thing, or if bullies have simply evolved over the years. Because I can't ignore the fact that most of the examples I gave of this plot device are American books and shows. And I read an article about American television shows the other day that suggested that these shows do not reflect the lives led by all American people, that the stories disproportionately feature the wealthier people's lives and gloss over, ignore or in some cases demonise the less well off, just for the crime of being poor. That anything that predominantly features poor people are usually cautionary tales about how not to end up like this. They can't feature the less well off or less attractive people as happy, that would never do. So if you can't achieve at least one of these, you are doomed to a life of crime, poverty, drug taking, destitution and mental illness. If people believed it was possible to be ugly and poor but still happy, what would they aspire to? And I'm not trying to be overly trite here either. I'm not dismissing the fact that money is an issue for a lot of people, or saying that the lack of it has no disadvantages. But is the disadvantage always that the pretty rich kids at school will make your life a misery? If your lipstick doesn't match your nail varnish and you're wearing Constance Carroll rather than Chanel, you might as well just give up on life, because everybody will be able to tell and they will torment you accordingly. Granted, it's been a mercifully long time since I went to school, but when I was there, noticeable makeup wasn't allowed. Well, no makeup was allowed, but if they didn't notice it, they couldn't ban it, could they? And some of the girls would spend the majority of the break times applying makeup really carefully to make it look like they hadn't got any on. What's the point? But there were definitely no panda eyes though, not unless you wanted to be banished to the toilets with a wet wipe. We also didn't get to parade around in the latest designer fashions because we were all forced to wear school uniforms. And the theory there is that wearing a uniform levels the playing field and nobody will know if you're poor and pick on you for it. As everybody in the UK knows, the introduction of school uniforms eradicated all bullying overnight and it's never happened since. The fact that your uniform was second-hand, 3 sizes too big and full of holes, never tipped anybody off to the fact that you had no money. And without your fashion sense or lack of as a guide, wannabe bullies simply couldn't think of any other excuse to pick on people. Maybe they had the right idea after all. If only beautiful people are bullies, it's hard to look beautiful in an oversized navy blue blazer and a matching pleated skirt. And that was just for the boys. I suppose it's fair to question here whether some of these characters that I mentioned earlier are considered bullies by everybody. Because they ruled the schools, they were the unofficial leaders of the influential cliques. They've gone by various names over the years, Queen Bee, Top Dog, Cock of the School for instance, but do they qualify as bullies? Well, I think they do, but I accept that some people may perceive this differently. Some of them were worse than others, but generally they didn't face any real consequences for their mistreatment of others. Again, depending on your point of view. Well, I'm going to leave it there. Feel free to comment down below if you remember your old school bully. Or even if you were the bully. Were they or you beautiful? Is that why they or you did it? And as always, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Bye.